Our 40,000 Smite gem giveaway has begun for January, so make sure you enter into it using the description down below. The more ways you enter, the better chances you have to win. You're here with your Bellona jungle guide. Last time we brought her into the solo lane, so we're mixing her up, and we're gonna take it into the jungle. Actually, not a bad jungler right now. In general, Bellona is a good character. She makes sense in the solo lane and in the jungle. And I'm not encouraging it, but I've seen her played in support work really well and even mid lane. In general, her kit is actually in a good spot. She recently got some small touches to her kit, just little things like how long she actually lasts within each of her stances. She got some magical power on her ultimate, so instead of just providing physical power and protections to your team, it also provides magical power, so she became a little bit better in the team fight because of that. Overall, just little itty-bitty quality of life changes for Bellona, but it's kind of reminded people that Bellona exists and is in fact still a good character. So in the jungle, we're going to be starting off with our normal build, Assassin's Blessing. We're going tier 1 sword because we're going to go into an early stone cutting sword. And we've got our bludgeon first. Bludgeon, of course, because this is going to give us AoE autos, which is going to help a lot in our early game jungle clear. Thanks. For Bellona, your hammer stance is interesting because it is the stance that you are using for clear in your AoEs, but it is not the stance that you want to box with. So I think a lot of times when people have troubles with Bellona, it's because they're trying to box in their hammer stance, and that's actually her worst stance for boxing. When you're fighting other enemy gods, depending on who it is, you either want to be in your 1 or your 3, utilizing your shield blocks or your whip heals. So if you're going against somebody that's going to be doing majoritively auto attack damage to you, let's say I'm going against like the Anher or the Danza, then preferably I would like to be boxing them while in my 1, because I'm going to be generating block stacks, and so like every third auto or something that they do isn't even going to matter. If I'm fighting a mage, then I want to be preferably in my whip form. It's going to give me a little bit of extra range. That little bit of extra range might be able to get me to the kills, and I'm also going to be sustaining a little bit while I'm fighting them, because I don't care about blocking their autos. I'm not trying to, you know, body block a Scylla auto. That doesn't mean anything to me. Body blocking a Danza auto, that does matter. Bludgeon, just for the clearing of our jungle. So on Bellona, we grab that bludgeon first, and then we get our whip. Or your 1. It really doesn't matter which one you get at level 2 and level 3. Whichever one you get at level 2, just make sure you get the other one at level 3. So that way you've got all 3 of your stances. Now, for the jungle, you can, if you want to, level up the bludgeon for the extra clear. I find that the extra clear personally isn't necessary in the jungle, that the regular baseline auto attacks are gonna be just fine and dandy. So I tend to level up the whip first. The whip is my personal favorite stance for Bellona. I tend to use it the most. So I'm gonna level up the whip up to max first. We are also against 2 hunters this game. We're against Danza and Anher. And as we rank up the whip, this increases the disarm duration up to 2.2 seconds, and it reduces the cooldown of this ability. So it's gonna give me a lot of good presence in the fights against the Anher and the Danza. I'm gonna head over to left lane. You can see we've gotten our attack speed boot here on Bellona. This build is gonna have quite a bit of attack speed in it. The more attack speed that we have, the more procs we're going to be getting from our 1 and our 3. So our 1 and our 3 are based off of proccing autos. I'm going to throw down my whip on this Anher so he can't even auto attack even if he would like to. I see that there's a rocket coming my way, so I'm gonna jump right over that rocket. Gotta put another point into my 3. And now my goal is to try to get to Danza. So if you look at our little passive meter bar over on that left-hand side, you can see how much longer I've got in the duration of my ability. So right now you can see every time I'm autoing, it is refreshing over on my little stacks. And that just means that I'm gonna stay in whatever stance that I am longer. So as I go to auto, you can see this bar fills back up. As long as you're hitting something with it, you're gonna keep refreshing that bar. Just your little timer so you can know what is going on. Little purple buff is up. I know a lot of them had to back, so I'm just gonna try to steal this purple and then waddle away with my 1. I don't want to get too greedy for all this. So just go ahead and get me right on out of there. On top of Bellona's passive as well, you can see little spikes. That is referring to your actual passive. So Bellona kind of has 2 passives in a way. One is the indication of how long she's lasting in each of her sword, hammer, and whip stances, which you see by the bar glowing up. And then the other little tidbit that you see is her actual passive, where you're gonna see those little spears on top. These are referring, of course, to your bonus movement speed and protections that you were getting. And so when those go away, then you are no longer getting those bonuses. Now, normally I would go over to do my blue buff right now and help out the Nike, but I see there's so much pressure happening over at left lane, and I don't want us to lose our purple buff and our red buff. So I'm actually gonna run right back over here. Danza's getting scared, which is good. As long as Danza's a little bit afraid. Now that I know his leaf is down, though, I'm gonna disarm him from a range just to make sure he can't instant kill my Discordia before I get there, and we should be able to finish him off. So you can see already this game how the leveling up of the whip is coming in just so handy. Whip! Reminder that whip goes through walls. That's a good point. It does not care. It can be used right over a wall, and it will smack somebody. Your ultimate, of course, also goes over walls. Your 2 and your 1, not quite as lucky in that regard. But you can whip people right over a wall to get that last hit. Hit him with the whip. Hit him with the whip. So now we can go back, get our stone cutting sword. We need to also make sure at this point in the game that we start buying our wards. Right around the 5-minute marker. If you haven't been buying wards yet, that should kind of be your indicator. Hey, you need to make sure you're buying wards in every single back, whether it's a couple of regular wards or a sentry ward.
Enemy spotted.
So we're gonna save our point here at level 8, and we're gonna grab a point in our whip and our ultimate, maxing out that whip for the maximum disarm duration. Of course, also increasing our healing as we do it, and then our ultimate ranks up everything. So we want to make sure we get that every single time that we can. Doesn't lower the cooldown on your ulti on Bellona, but honestly, it's a pretty low cooldown to begin with. I'm going to start throwing out some deep wards into their jungle, because it's about the time of the game where I want to start stealing their jungle. So I want to make sure that I've got some good vision on this. Scylla barely going to dash away from me. Danza's coming right in. I'm going to try to body block right now for my girl. I'm going to ulti right in on this, see if I can't get a double hammer action going. Woo! Got a little lucky there that Discordia put down the Sobek. Otherwise, I could have gotten plucked right there.
Thanks.
Yes.
So Bellona is a lot tankier than she looks necessarily by her build. One of the reasons why I believe she's working so well in the jungle right now is because she's kind of naturally got that hybrid style going that's really popular right now. And a lot of that just comes from the fact that her passive is giving her so many protections. So you get 5 protections per stack with 5 stacks. It's 25 of each protections, not to mention the movement speed that you get as well. And on top of that, you also get the protections from your ultimate.
Enemies have returned to base.
So when you're throwing out your ulti, ooh, I might have a kill here. I'm getting the little double hammer for that bonus damage. Gonna be able to finish that off. Now I'm gonna switch over into my 1 for the block stacks, and I gotta be a little careful here. I still got my disarm up if he tries to go for me. So you get all these bonus protections on protection. So even without building defensive, you actually get medium tanky. So when we grab a hybrid item like a stone cutting sword, which is mostly damage, but it actually gives us that 30 physical pen and protections, we get really tanky to physical damage really quick on Bellona. Which brings us into our next part. Bellona loves going against physical characters. She has a much better time against physical characters, particularly auto attackers, is where she thrives. She's got the disarm on her 3. She's got the built-in block stacks on her 1. This means that hunters are your bread and butter. That's what you want to be going against. You will slice them and dice them all the way up, and you will be a nightmare for any hunter in the game. You can chase them over walls with your ulti. You can slow them down. You've got everything you could possibly want. Where Bellona tends to struggle a little bit more is in the mages. She's not quite as good at killing the mages, doesn't have that built-in magical protections in quite the same way. When you get items like stone cutting sword, she doesn't have as much protections in the form of disarms and being able to block abilities or anything like that. So mages is where she tends to come in trouble. Not any real problem with frontline, not any real problem with physical damage in general. You gotta watch out for the big money mages. If Asilla lands a root combo on me, it's pretty much gonna do me in. So I need to be very careful when I'm fighting around Asilla. The rest of the team don't have to be nearly as careful.
That's on you. Enemy ultimate down.
For our third item, we're gonna be going something kind of cheeky, but I do actually believe that it's a mandatory item on Bellona jungle, and that is going to be a Frostbound hammer. Frostbound hammer, regardless of whether you're combining it with your 1 for the additional slows, just keeps people from doing anything. It's gonna it's got that attack speed slow on it as well, so they're gonna have their attack speed and their movement speed slowed. So you're talking somebody gets Bellona whipped and they cannot use their autos for 2.2 seconds. And then you dash into them with your 1, and now they are slowed in your reflecting damage, and you're doing block stacks. Then they finally go to attack you, and they've got lower attack speed and lower movement speed on top of the slow from your 1. So I'm gonna head over here towards this left lane. We gotta be a little bit careful. They've got 4 people. As much as I want to go fight that, I need to wait for them to disperse a little bit. Now that they've dispersed, though, I can 100% look in here towards this Anhurt. He's just jumping in place. I should be able to just kind of walk right on over. I'm going to disarm him. I'm going to have to throw down the ulti. That's okay. I want to fight inside of my ulti anyway. I'm staying inside of my whip for him. I'm not even going to use my bludgeon because I don't want to use the healing that I'm going to get. Sat inside my ulti for the bonus protections and power, and now I can use my bludgeon to go ahead and clear out this wave, using it for the AoEs that it was meant for. Switching over to my whip to make sure that I am sustaining off of this Gold Fury. We gotta be careful that the Scylla doesn't come in to steal it, but I do believe she's too far away to proper contest this.
Need healing back.
You don't have to get the Frostbound third, but I do recommend getting the Frostbound within your first 4 items. It is genuinely an actually very good item on Bellona. I wouldn't recommend it on too many people, but Bellona jungle for sure. Even Bellona solo, if you're gonna run a more damage-oriented build, tends to work out quite well over there as well. As long as you're rocking a little bit of attack speed. So speaking of our attack speed, we're going to get a little bit more into this hybrid action. We're going to be grabbing ourselves a Berserker Shield. So we're getting a lot of HP from the Frostbound. We've got a little bit of defenses from our Stone Cutting. We get a little bit of attack speed from our boots. And now we're going to be getting ourselves into Berserker Shield, which kind of does a little bit of everything. Going to give us some attack speed, power, physical protections, and a little bit of penetration, which we do not have any percent pen at this point. You really don't need any percent pen until your 4th item on Bellona Jungle. So that is not something that you should be worried about, but it will start to help us against tankier characters later in the game. We're mostly getting it for that increased attack speed and the protections.
Chase the
You can see how we're not really getting
Enemies incoming left.
magical protections. We're not gonna have those magical protections for a while, which is why we have to be careful of people like the Scylla. So we burn the Scylla beads. I'm just gonna go ahead and retreat off that, call that a win. They're fighting over and left hard, and we don't have anybody grouped up for it. Enemy team is doing a very good job rotating right now. So why are we picking a Bellona jungle? We're picking Bellona jungle for 2 reasons. One,
Enemy
you need
missing left.
physical damage and you need frontline, right? You're playing the jungle, you're like, wow, we do not have a very tanky team right now. We're super squishy, guys. I don't know about this. Somebody rocking an Apollo solo or something. You're like, I'm not so sold on this whole Hunter solo thing. It'll happen. So you're like, well, I need to go somebody a little bit tankier, and I still need to be somebody that's a physical damage. So the Guardians like Ymir are out of the question. So I'm gonna get myself a warrior in that jungle. Bellona is a perfect fit for that. She'll add lots of physical damage while still providing some frontline to your team. This is not gonna be like a 100% damage build situation. It's gonna be her own very specific form of hybrid. A lot of that hybrid build you're seeing right now with the Pridven Glad Shield combo is not necessarily what makes Bellona super strong. So we're gonna get this Berserker Shield. Gonna help make us a little bit tankier, plus it's gonna give us some nice damage. Make sure we buy a Sentry Ward. The other reason why we pick Bellona is because the enemy team is rocking a bunch of physical characters, particularly auto attackers. Now, it doesn't have to be hunters. In this game in particular, there are 2 hunters, which makes this a good Bellona game. But it doesn't have to be hunters. Mercury, auto attack based physical, Arachne, Osiris, all of those characters that do factor in a lot of autos, all good characters for Bellona to go against. So there's auto attacking warriors, assassins, and hunters. She still can do okay against the auto attack mages. So the auto attack mages don't get played a ton anymore. The Oleron, Kronos, the souls of the world. So I don't think you're gonna have to worry about it. Her disarm is still very effective against them. Her block stacks are great. She just doesn't tend to build a lot of magical defense, which can get you into a little bit of trouble in that situation. My bead's getting me into a little bit of trouble by not going off when I press them. And her jumped right in, so I'm just gonna start W King right at him. I actually do have to be careful with the Danza and everybody here though. I've got to dash out of that Scylla combo. I'm actually gonna see if he doesn't try to dash. He does. I'm gonna blink in on this. I'm gonna go for the kill on Sobek, and now I'm gonna try to use the extended auto range on Bellona in order to grab that kill. Gonna stay in my whip stance just to make sure that I'm getting any sustain right now. Switching over to my 1 to try to slow down Chalk, and he's gonna teleport right on out, and we should be able to head back down to the Gold Fury. For our next item, we're going to be getting our first magical defense item. It is going to be a Shogun's Kusari. Shogun's Kusari going to give us some magical defenses finally, but also still going to be a bit of an offensive item for us. We're going to get some bonus attack speed for ourselves, not to mention our team. So our Danzaburo is going to be loving life as he is given some extra attack speed from his jungler. And even characters like Nike, you know, nothing wrong with a little bit of extra attack speed to Nike. Discordia Baron, not really going to utilize it at all, but it's really more of a selfish item that just so happens to help the rest of the team. It's also going to give us a little bit of CCR, which is always nice. CCR just means that you get seed less, crowd control reduction. So if I've got 20% CCR from Shogun's Kusari and somebody hits me with a 1 second stun, well, instead of getting stunned for 1 second, I'm going to get stunned for 0.8 seconds. It's going to take 20% off of that duration. CCR does have a cap of 40%. A lot of things in Smite cap at 40%. CDR, CCR, penetration, all sorts of stuff.
Welcome to the
Retreat.
So this is going to allow me to walk a little bit more aggressive into the Scylla, because I've got some more options on the table now. Won't quite be able to one-shot me as easy. So my defenses are okay. You can see I've got over 100 defense protections. We've got 2.5k in HP. And we're still hitting hard. We still got that top damage because we are swinging with this build, and this Frostbound hammer just makes us so ridiculously annoying. I'm going to use my whip for the extended auto range so I can get back into range of the Sobek, and it looks like he's going to go right on down. Reminder that that whip literally makes your auto attack range longer. So when you combine that with the Frostbound, it can be very difficult to get away from Bellona. The second Scylla ulties, I'm just going to go ahead and ulti on top of him, except for he never even gets it off because I sit there and just auto attack him to death. Now, at the very end of the game, as you get into the late stages, you're going to start noticing your damage is going to drop off a little bit.
Attack fire giant.
That's okay, because our next item that we are going to be getting is a kin size with the attack speed that we have, combined with the Frostbound hammer, not allowing them to get away. That Kinge is going to add a lot of damage, especially to the characters that we will struggle to kill in the late stages of the game, like this Chalk. This Chalk will start to become too tanky for us, and we won't be able to just kill him willy-nilly. The squishies will always have a problem with us. So right now, we're just trying to auto-attack everybody that we can, get as many people Frostbound slowed, and her ultimate is down. I'm going to jump right on top of him, making sure I'm staying in my whip form so I can tank this tower. I'm regenning from the Fire Giant. I'm regenning from my 3. And we should be able to get ourselves a Phoenix. So when we sell that Assassin's Blessing, we are going to get ourselves a good old Kins. Scylla's about to dash. I can see that, so I'm going to blink right on after him after he does. Using my whip, I'm going to try to hammer him down to death, and we will be able to grab that kill. Going to instantly preemptively beads. Going to slow down Danza before he can get into his fountain, and so we can grab that kill. And it looks like we actually might be able to put this one away right now. We got a really quick wipe over the Phoenixes. Sobek is respawning in 4, but I don't think they are going to be up in time. So we're going to be able to put this one away before we actually get that kid online. After that Kins, we would have sold our boots. And for your very last item, it really doesn't matter. It's going to be entirely situational. I did not need any anti-heal in that match. The only person that was really concerned about it was Chalk with his healing, and he never super came online to be a problem in terms of healing. But always keep Toxic Blade in mind on Bellona with this build. Way better than a Brawler's on her when you're running this jungle hybrid oriented build. You actually proc that Toxic very fast. Plus it's going to give you additional attack speed, which is going to pair really well with that Kins that you would have had in that 6 slot. Otherwise, it's more of your standard items, your Magi's Blessings, your Mantle of Discords, even something else defensive for your team if the situation so arises, guys. And that is our Bellona guide.